Hey guys, I hope you're all doing really well. Today I'm going to be doing the first update in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project. This is a project pan that was heavily inspired by my friend Alexi, and my goal is to basically hit pan on as many eyeshadows as I can in my collection really with this project. But the most fun part about this is that I'm selecting the shadows that I'm focusing on completely randomly. So it is a roulette style project. And that's exactly how Alexi did it the last 2 years. Unfortunately, she's not continuing this project for 2019. She's actually moving on to a Pan That palette. But if you haven't seen her videos, definitely head over and check out her channel. I will link that down below. She's so close to 1K. Maybe by the time that I post this, she'll be at 1K, but she's super close to 1K. So if you have been watching her videos and haven't subscribed, definitely head on over there and hit that subscribe button because she's just the best. So even though Alexi isn't continuing on this project for 2019, there actually are a couple other people who jumped in and started doing this project too. So my friend Tosh is doing it and my friend Sophie is doing it as well. So you guys definitely have to go check out their channels and see their intros to their projects as well. And I think this is just such a fun way to challenge myself to use different eyeshadows in my collection and to really familiarize myself with the eyeshadows that I have and see how long it really does take to hit pan on products, because I last year added so many eyeshadows to my collection. It's ridiculous. I wish that I had done an inventory at the beginning of 2018 versus the end of 2018, because the amount of eyeshadows I added to my collection was insane. And this project is really gonna keep me, I think, from over purchasing eyeshadows within this year. And I think that's a really good thing because I have just about every single color that I possibly could need in my life. And if I don't have it, I know I can like mix colors together and make it. So yeah, I have been thoroughly enjoying this project, not only for the creative aspect of just trying to challenge myself to utilize 6 random shades that I selected, but also in the sense that it really is an eye-opener, and it really is something I think that's gonna keep me from like over-consuming and over-purchasing. So yes, with all that being said, I do have a really exciting update to share with you guys, so let's just hop right into it. If you didn't see the intro to this project, basically what it is I wrote down every single eyeshadow that I have in my collection. I have them in a Google spreadsheet, and each eyeshadow is allocated to a number just based on where I ended up typing them into the spreadsheet. And I had 286 eyeshadows. So what I did was I randomly selected 6 shades from a random number generator, and I have been focusing on using those for the last like almost 4 weeks. And it was definitely an odd assortment of shades, but I have them all here to share with you. So the first palette that I have here, I actually selected 2 shades from. This is the Colourpop Yes Please palette, and the random generator selected 2 shades from here. So it selected Full Zip and it selected Champs. I guess since I'm opening up the palette, I'll just share with you guys my progress on both shadows. And as you can see, I did hit pan right here in the shade Champs this month. This one here is Full Zip, and I do have really good progress happening on Full Zip. Obviously, I have hit my goal on Champs, which is so exciting. I can't believe that I hit pan on 1 shade already in this project, but yes, I hit actually pretty significant pan. I am wearing that in my crease today. It was just such an easy shade to wear with just about any sort of look. Basically, I will place this onto the entirety of the lid, and then I'll just go into the crease with this and I'll create the rest of my look surrounding these 2 shades. So these have been really easy to use. I am of course gonna continue on trying to hit pan on Full Zip. I don't think that will be a problem whatsoever. It's such an easy shade to use on an every single day basis. So I'm just gonna keep focusing my efforts on that, but I am really happy to have hit my goal on this one right here. So that will be rolling out of this project actually. So I will be able to generate another number to focus on. There is one other eyeshadow palette that has 2 shades actually in it. The random generator was doing really weird things with me when I filmed the intro, but the palette is the NYX Ultimate Brights palette, and it is an all colorful palette as you guys can see. And the shades that were selected from this palette are this one right here, number 9, and this one that is in shade number 11. So both the shades were in the blues row, so I was able to use this a handful of times together alongside other shadows in my collection as well. So my goal with this palette was to, of course, hit pan, but realistically what I wanted to do was to see if I wanted to declutter this eyeshadow palette or not. I wanted to use the first month to really play with it, and then I would focus in on the goal of hitting pan on these. And unfortunately, I have decided that I do want to declutter this palette. I just didn't find myself reaching for it, to be honest. And yes, it is all colorful. It's not something you use on an everyday basis. But I do know that I have other things in my collection that just, I guess I like a little bit more. I did purchase this only back in the summer, so I can hand it off to someone else in my life. And it was a really great introductory sort of brights palette. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad palette by any means. I do really like it, but I know that I have the Blush Tribe Blossom palette. I have the Juvia's Place, the Zulu. Yeah, this past month was just a really good eye-opener that now that I have other options within my collection, this just isn't something that I find myself drawn to anymore. The fifth shadow that I randomly selected came from this palette right here. This is the Zulu by Juvia's Place, and this shadow is the one that I selected. It's shadow number 2, so it's that bright, bold yellow, and these are all massive pans, so I know that this is gonna be a long-term palette for me to be working on. But having actually had both of these palettes in this project at the same time made me really realize I don't really need both. So that is why I think that this past month was just so perfect to have that palette in, because I found myself just wanting to incorporate shades from this palette alongside that yellow, and I didn't even, like, I did dip into the NYX Vivid Brights, but it didn't really add much to the looks. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do. I just kind of felt a little bit forced to do it. But I created a lot of really fun looks with this palette over this past month. I had so much fun playing with color, and I just adored it. So I'm really happy that this is in this project, whether I end up hitting pan on the yellow soon or I just familiarize myself more and more with this formula and just play with this palette and just have fun with color. So this is what the palette is looking like right now. Clearly not any major dips quite yet, but I am excited to be focusing on this shadow. So I just decided to swatch the shades. I don't know why I didn't do this for full zip originally, but here's full zip. It's just a, like, my kind of nude shade. So you can barely even see the swatch there. And then this one is the yellow from the Zulu palette, and I adore this yellow so much. This just makes me so happy, and it feels so like summery to me, so I'm so happy I'm working on this in the early part of January with the snow and the cold. This just makes me feel a lot better. And then the last shade that I'm currently working on in this project comes from this palette right here. It's from the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette. And the shadow that I'm focusing on is the shade Lazarus. And Lazarus is this shadow right here, which is the more cool toned portion. It's the cool toned crease shade. I've been primarily just using this through my brows. Actually, I have it in the front portion of my brow today, and I've been using it on an everyday basis pretty much through the front part of my brows, and then I'll use my dip brow through the tail just to create more definition on the tail and the arch. And I've been really liking it for that. I have used it a handful of times as well as like a contour just at the very back of my cheekbones. And of course I have been wearing it as an eyeshadow as well. And as you can see, there is a little bit of a dip happening, and that's because I have been multi-purposing this shadow. I don't know how deep these shades are. Obviously I haven't hit pan on any of these shadows yet. So I have a feeling it's still gonna last me quite some time, and I have been focusing my brush kind of right dead center. So I'm clearly not using like the entirety of the pan, so who knows? I don't know. I might be able to hit pan on it in the next couple months. So that shade on the bottom right there is Lazarus, and I think that these three that are the remaining shades in this project are really good, and I think that no matter what other three shades I pick, I can still get use out of these because they are just really good, everyday, practical kind of shades for me. If I'm going for a more cool tone look, I'll use Lazarus. If I'm going for a more warm tone look, I'll use this one from the Zulu. And then this guy from Yes Please is just an everyday staple. So I'm going to actually pick 3 more shades to focus on in my collection, and I'm really, really excited about that. So let's just do that right now. So now that I have eliminated the NYX Vivid Brights palette from the bottom of my spreadsheet, I'm down to 270 shadows, which I know is still a huge amount of eyeshadows to own, but I'm at 270. So I'm gonna go into the Pretty Random app and I'm gonna put minimum 1, maximum 270, and we are going to just randomize one shade right now. So the first shade I got is number 70. So the eyeshadow that is allocated to that spot comes from this palette right here. This is the Fenty Beauty Galaxy palette. It was their holiday palette for 2017, and I actually recently did a palette bingo using this and the Blush Tribe Blossom palette. That's actually the look I think I was wearing in the intro to this project, and I was debating at the end of the year to declutter this, but I have integrated it into looks every once in a while since kind of revisiting it, and I'm really happy with this palette. It is a little bit more high maintenance, but regardless, it is a beautiful palette. So the shade, let's get on to that, I selected is called Space Out. It is this shade right here. It is as everything else in this palette is, it's a shimmery, glittery finish purple eyeshadow, however. And it is not the craziest color, but it definitely is a more colorful eyeshadow to play with. Definitely a more complex sort of formula as well to work with, but I am really excited to be focusing on this palette. So I did kind of like buff and layer this shade up, but this is a swatch of the shade Space Out. It definitely is a little bit more dusty than it actually looked in the pan, so I'm not as afraid of this anymore, but it has a beautiful shift to it. It has, not a shift, but it has a lot of colored sparkle in it. So it has a little bit of blue, pink, and purple, and I think this is a beautiful shade. It will pair actually really nicely, I think, with Lazarus in the crease or as like a base underneath, but I'm excited to play with that one. And as you can see, kind of as a whole, this palette isn't really all that used, so I am excited to be rolling this in just to get use out of all of the shadows, but especially to be focusing on Space Out. So I'm just gonna select another shade now, and I selected the shade number 131. The shadow that was allocated to that number comes from this palette right here. This is the ABH Subculture Palette, very controversial, very polarizing palette, but I personally really do enjoy this palette, not in its entirety, but I do like several shades from this, and I love the color scheme. I find this palette to just be very inspiring, especially in the fall time, especially in the winter time. So it is really nice that I am rotating this in at this moment. The shade that I picked out is this one right here called New Wave, which is one of the more summery shades in this palette, but it is absolutely beautiful. It's just a really good orange toned shadow. I think it'll pair beautifully with that yellow from the Juvia's Place palette, and it is really blendable, this one, I find personally. I know for me, a lot of the deeper shades in this palette, I do have a hard time blending, but this is just a really good, easy, blendable, everyday kind of neutral sort of shadow in my opinion. So as you can see, this whole palette has a lot of wear to it. This is New Wave right here, and it's not the most used out of this palette, so I am really excited to try to hit pan on that guy soon. So I am just gonna randomize my last one. Like I said in the intro, I was going to let myself select one other shadow to focus on, but just because this is just so much fun and I'm really liking the color scheme I have right now, I'm just going to pick my last shadow randomly. So the last shadow I'm going to be drawing comes from number 92, so I will be right back to share with you guys what that is. So the final palette I'm going to be working on is another Colourpop palette. This is the Dream Street palette, which is a collaboration with Kathleen Lights and Colourpop. And the shade that I selected from here is probably one of the ones that I enjoy the most, but I think it scares me the most to try to pan it, and it is this shade right here called Spark. It is a beautiful red. It's a bright red, but I do think it has a little bit of a pinky undertone, so it makes it a little bit more wearable, a little bit easier to blend as well. There is significant progress on here. Actually, you can see I have made a pretty good dip in that already just from like natural use, and I did have this in a 1 month, 2 palettes sort of project that I did last year, and I just ended up like falling off of doing that project. But regardless, yeah, so I did use this quite a lot in that project. This is something that I do really like. I love the way that this looks, especially in the summertime, so I might end up kind of trying to push it to use it more so in the summertime, but it could be really cool for like Valentine's Day looks as well. I'm gonna give you guys a swatch of it so you can see, because it actually is gonna pair really nicely with this color scheme, I think. So that one right there is Spark. So I think that it's really nice having all of these matte, more warm tone shades. The yellow, the orange, and the red are beautiful shadows. I can pair them with other shimmers in my collection, something like my Stila Kitten Karma, the Magnificent Metals shadow. I think that would look really cool with these kinds of shades. I can definitely pair that red with the purple. I think that would be really fun and could be challenging, but I think that would be a lot of fun. So seeing this color scheme in comparison to what I had in the intro, I'm actually really happy, because I feel like these are more the kinds of shades that I'm personally drawn to, and they're the kinds of shades that I really will want to get use out of, whereas the blues, I was like, yeah, that's gonna be a challenge, which is cool, but I'm not gonna wanna really use them all the time. And it was a palette that I'm just not in love with. So I'm really happy about the shade selection from here. Based on these shade selections, I honestly don't know how well I'm gonna be doing with hitting pan on any of these shadows in the coming month, but we will see. I think the easiest one's definitely gonna be full zip, but anything really is possible at this point. I just need to start playing and just have fun with my eyeshadows and with my palettes. I'm so excited for this project pan. This is really cool, like, especially now that I've just rolled in 3 more shadows. I'm so excited for this project, and I can't wait to just keep making progress within my collection. So definitely go and check out Tosh and Sophie's videos if you really enjoy this kind of content. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.